President Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday for the third time since the violence began. Biden is now publicly endorsing a ceasefire as he faces mounting pressure from within his own party to de-escalate this conflict. ABC News political director Rick Klein joins me now for more on the U.S. response here. And Rick, how significant is this public call for a ceasefire from President Biden?
He is stopping short of a demand for a ceasefire, and in diplomatic speak, that speaks volumes, that this is a request for a ceasefire, a call for a ceasefire, as opposed to a demand. The U.S. could potentially have a lot of leverage here. The Israelis, among many others, are looking very closely to see how the American side reacts. A big test for the Biden administration and his new take on diplomacy in the region. President Biden is very familiar with these issues. He's very familiar with the players, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, but he's handling this very carefully more than a week into the crisis. The White House still urging patience and giving the Israeli side a little more room than many Americans, including many in the Democratic Party, are comfortable with at this moment.
The Biden administration has been ramping up its diplomatic effort. So who are the key players here, and what are they doing behind the scenes?
Yeah, Eva, it's interesting because the Biden administration has stopped short of sending a high-level envoy to the region. The top American there is a man named Hadi Amr, who is a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. There is no Assistant Secretary of State. There's no ambassador that's even been nominated to Israel. And the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken himself, he has been traveling for climate meetings in Denmark, Iceland, and Greenland, and he has not been sent to the region. Now, the Biden administration says there's a lot of quiet diplomacy going on, including behind-the-scenes phone calls, some 60 calls that have happened between the Americans and their counterparts on either the Palestinian side or the Israeli side. We know that President Biden himself has talked to both President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu a couple of times. It's complicated by the fact that the U.S. doesn't have any formal relationships with Hamas, which is considered a terrorist organization, so it's not clear how much sway you can have. But this is quiet diplomacy for a noisy region at a very noisy time, and it's testing the limits of how Biden has handled this and trying to keep a little bit of arm's length.
So we're seeing this quiet diplomacy. Meanwhile, an increasingly vocal wing of Biden's own party is calling for him to pressure Netanyahu to stop Israel's attacks on Gaza. He's also facing the challenge of dealing with Hamas, which you referenced, which has fired thousands of rockets into Israel. How much power does Biden really have there? And what, if any, further steps could he take?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think there's probably more sway than people might realize in terms of how the Israelis react, because America is the largest and most important ally that Israel has. It's been the United States blocking Security Council resolutions condemning the violence that would equate kind of a both sides type of an argument. So, look, Netanyahu needs the Americans to be on board. But in terms of what it can mean for the Hamas side, it's extremely limited. And I think key to this, and very foremost in the minds of American officials, is you can't find a way toward a even temporary peaceful solution that allows terrorists to say they got what they wanted. That, of course, is a terrible message to send in the region and far beyond. We know that there have been civilians killed, even if it's been disproportionate in terms of the death toll. We know that the violence started because of terrorist attacks on Israelis that have killed civilians.
What's happening over there right now, so complicated for a lot of people to understand. President Biden is visiting Michigan today, which has the highest percentage Arab American population of any state. Some protests are already planned for his visit. What can we expect to see?
He'll get a glimpse into some of the changing politics around the Arab-Israeli conflict. And you'll see it firsthand because Detroit has such a large Arab-American population. But it's not just Arab-Americans who have an evolving view of issues surrounding Israel and the Middle East. And there's a whole generation of younger Jewish politicians who believe that there needs to be more attention paid to the Israeli side and the disproportionate response and policing tactics. And it fits into the broader calls inside the Democratic Party for civil rights. So this issue has moved substantially. It's moved particularly among Democrats, and I'd expect that those protesters are going to give Biden an earful if they can get anywhere near him today.
And we will all be watching that. Rick Klein, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.